welcome everybody to the 12 o'clock show with Mayor Joe, and joining me is my special guest, me. Had a couple scheduling things, you couldn't find somebody to come in and replace for this one, so I asked you, everybody out there watching, to submit questions, and you did not disappoint. We have about 13 questions. There were a number that were kind of like combination questions or repeat questions. But I'm going to jump right into it, and we're going to go ahead and Jasmine's going to read off the first question. We'll go from there.
Alrighty. Question 1. What's going on where the project at Old Kmart is happening?
So first thing that's going on there is they put a hold on it once they got all of the underground done, the sewer, the water lines, and things of that nature. So they're reevaluating what they want to do. They're going to come back to Planning and Zoning Council probably in September, early October, to go ahead and reorient some things. Obviously, price increases have come up, things like that. But the project is still moving forward, and you're still going to see some of the same things. You're still seeing the restaurants, you're still seeing the retail. The office space is just going to be differently configured. So that's it for that one. And I saw this comment. The question was about, is this another failed Reynoldsburg project? I'm not sure what Reynoldsburg projects have failed, but I will ask a question that I have. And this is really for a lot of things. There's an awful lot of hate on the city of Reynoldsburg, and I'm not 100% sure why it is. But it's in there, and a lot of things tend to take a negative connotation, and I'm not entirely sure why. So hopefully, I'm pretty sure that questionnaire will probably come back and say that. Okay, gonna go ahead and go to the next one.
Okay, question 2. Besides Brewster's, has any other business committed to the new space at Main and Lancaster?
Yep. They have 2 other committed businesses. Not that anything else matters but ice cream, but yes, there are 2 other ones. One is a financial office. It's an Edward Jones financial office. It will be on the 2nd story. And then below that, on the 1st story, kind of like the back side of the building, is going to be a new dentist office. They are currently in negotiations with coffee and restaurant space right now. They just have not signed the dotted lines as of just yet. But from what I've seen of who they're talking with, I think everybody's going to be pretty pleased. And it's nothing that's going to compete with Prost and Vicks across the way. It's going to be something that's kind of going to be a nice complement to the area.
All right. Question 3. The French House or Brown House is currently set to be a barber shop.
Yep. It is currently set. They just went through planning and zoning a couple of weeks ago, and then they appealed the decision to City Council. So they are going to be a barbershop. They are going to move forward with that. As far as where they're at in the plans from there, a lot of that is based on internal engineering things that they're taking care of. But they have to go through some inspection processes and things of that nature. Usually a good indication to look at is when the signs are starting to be put up. That would be it. I have heard there's a potential that the house may be repainted. It may not stay brown. I'm not 100% sure on that one. We're trying to find out. But if it does happen, we'll let you know.
And then they also asked Temp Taco / 4th and Goal.
Yep, the other restaurant that is there is 4th and Goal, or what used to be known as Tempe Taco. That's currently on the market. I have tried to reach out to the owner of the properties. I know that it's been busy. We've been playing kind of phone tag, things like that. It is for sale. I know he's looking for something. When I did speak with him a while ago, he was hoping to sell to I guess you say almost like a mom and pop type something or another, something local, something not chain related. But he did say if the right chain came along, maybe that would be an option. Usually we don't know any of that stuff until they come in, if they're like making any internal changes, or if they're coming in for the signs. That's usually when we know for elements of property that aren't ours.
Question 4. Are there plans for a food hall type of development?
Yeah, there are. I would love to have a food hall down here. If you notice, a lot of the other food halls around Central Ohio, specifically in the Columbus area, are kind of like retrofit existing buildings. We don't really have a lot of those in here. There's not a lot of those specific types of buildings. But I think it would be a good thing. I think there's still some places on Old Town that could do it. I still think that when you look across from the Department of Agriculture, I think that's probably where you'll see some of that environment as well.
All right. How is the timing of the traffic lights determined?
Contrary to popular opinion, it's not determined to make it the most miserable experience of your life. It just happens to be that sometimes the way things are, traffic does get backed up. So this is, I believe, the Lancaster and Main intersection. Under normal day-to-day circumstances, there is an additional time allotted to the traffic light during your peak times. Your probably, I would say, 7 to 9:30, and then again 3 to probably 6 o'clock. So those are hours in there. It adds about, I think there's a total of 14 seconds in between the signal turning green and then going red. And usually for the most part that alleviates it. The issue has become if there's been some utility work being done. So yesterday, and the city did not know this, we kind of sometimes get notified by AEP that somebody's going to come in and they have to shut something down to do some connections. They were in and out of there relatively fast. If we can continue to work on that, so they let us know ahead of time, we'll try and get that information out there. I do have a meeting with the school district later today, and we'll be talking about some traffic related things because of Wagner Road and as the school year, unfortunately for those of you that may be looking forward to going back to school, it's going to be here before you know it. But we're going to have some conversations about how to alleviate some of that. Ultimately, that additional time will be allocated, and that's just what the Lancaster Light's going to be.
How can residents know about traffic issues on Main and Lancaster or any other road?
I think what we can try and do is if there's going to be future construction that's in that area that's shutting something down, I think we need to make sure we put some kind of a warning system much further up so you have an opportunity to turn around and potentially go in a different direction. If it's something that is a larger scale thing, like when they put in the sidewalks and the brick by the Main and Lancaster building, that obviously is going to take a couple of days, so that may be something. We won't know exactly when that is, but if we do, once we do, we'll have it broadcast on social media. We'll put it out all the way across, so that'll be something that'll be helpful for everybody.
When will the barrier on Mueller be removed to allow access to the schools?
All right, it's a good question. Actually, that was just a brand new one. So for those of you that live up in the Taylor Road area, on the other side of that, in between Taylor Road and Summit, it's the new the new DR Horton housing complex. They have barriers on Mueller. So if you ever look at Google Map or if you've been back there, there is actually a road that was kind of outlined even before construction. Now that road is in, but they're going to keep those barriers up until pretty much the housing development is completed in that area. And the reason why is they want to make sure that they keep non-construction related traffic off that area. And the other part of it is because at this point in time, nobody can get back there except for a few of the residents that live on one side. So if you're driving through there, the opportunity for your tires to collect some nails or other debris in the road that cause flat tires is heightened, and they want to make sure that they have clear paths all the way so that way they don't have to worry, no one has to worry about kind of any debris in the road. Now, when that's going to be, I don't know. I will ask, but my guess is it probably will not happen until after the first of the year.
Where would the parking for the PNC site be?
It's a good question. For the most part, it's going to be on the site in the parcel that's there. So if you look at, I guess you'd say a Google map, or you go to the Franklin County Auditor site, the property that's there, that's where the parking is going to be. There have been talks already about what it would look like. It probably will not all be surface parking. There will probably be some sort of what they call podium parking, where there will be options that would be kind of stacked underneath. So basically, let's say you have half the first floor is that 8,000 square feet of residence, the retail, and then you have another section on the back side of it that would probably be where the parking is, that would be underneath, and then parking on the surface area as well. We won't know exactly what that's going to look like until we really get into the engineering, which obviously couldn't happen before Monday's passing at council.
Any response from local businesses who thought that downtown would be more vibrant of a business locality?
Yeah, actually, I did speak with one of the business owners of Eastside Brewery. He and I came and talked about it. We showed him the comprehensive master plan about how that kind of area was always envisioned for, a higher density aspect of things with that first floor retail. He seemed to express no concerns. I haven't heard anything from anybody else other than the fact that they're looking forward to having some additional residents that will be able to be within walking distance to purchase, whether it's going to Vic's, Prost, or the new Trivium side all the way across. I think it is actually going to be more vibrant than obviously what it is now, especially when you consider that the door will probably be in place in the next couple of months as well.
Why doesn't the city fly the American flag on Main Street for the 4th of July?
That actually caused a lot of conversations about it. So there's some logistical reasons to it, and then there's some historical reasons to it. Logistical is this, depending on the part of Main Street that you're talking about, if you're talking from Davidson to Bryce, there are issues with some of the poles having the ability to hold the flags out there and to make sure that if their flags are kind of like leaning like this as opposed to like a banner flag, there's concerns about whether or not we have the height clearance if semis were to go through it. Either way, you'll probably see banners on there. The reason why we are holding off is because, as you've probably heard us talk about before, is the bus rapid transit lane. We don't know what that engineering is going to look like. We don't know that if the boundary line, if they're going to be acquiring right of way that would push our poles back even further or have us replace them. What we didn't want to do is spend X amount of dollars on those banners and then all of a sudden only be able to use them for 1 or 2 years if this BRT issue passes. Now, moving from Davidson-ish all the way back to Wagner Road, most of those banners are actually taken up by the military recognition banners. We usually hang them twice a year, usually, again, starting on Memorial Day through the 4th of July. They'll probably come down in the next week or so, and then we'll probably kick back up again around Veterans Day. And so those banners are there, and that is, in my opinion, almost the equivalency of that when we're recognizing those that have fought and, in some cases, died for our country. As far as the American flags itself, from there to Wagner Road, we've been waiting for some of the pole pieces to come in that has just been on back order. Otherwise, we could have similar banners to that. But what we did do this year is we did add, as our 4th of July celebration is actually on Lancaster, we added additional flags not only on the way to Lancaster, but once you got into Civic Park as well. So those are things. Once we get the BRT issued up, then that's another question. To my understanding, based on my memory and everybody here at City Hall, the city really has never hung flags on Main Street at all, ever, outside of a couple small ones by maybe city functions and things of that nature. But once we get the BRT settled up, if that's the direction that we want to go, and we have some assurity that we're not going to just spend money for 1 year's worth of banners, then we can do that.
Has there been any discussion of a community pool in Reynoldsburg?
On social media only. And this is actually kind of going into what we'll talk about here in a minute with fireworks. I have gotten 0 emails requesting a community pool. City Council, to the best of my knowledge, has gotten 0 emails requesting a community pool. And so that kind of is the thing that we need to have that kind of information. Yes, we look at social media. Yes, we see what goes on social media about saying we need to have this and we need to have that. But very rarely does that information actually get to City Council or to my office. No, I know I've asked a couple of times on the show before, hey, if you want to have a conversation about it or really any topic, I'm happy to do that. But nobody really has done that. The amount of effort that it would take to bring a community pool to Reynoldsburg is probably a little bit greater than what most people are expecting. And the affordability aspect of it, you're not going to get a community pool where you're going to get in for free. It just doesn't work like that. There's no community in Central Ohio that does things like that. There would be some sort of cost. If you look back a couple of shows ago, we actually did kind of a price survey of some of the local pools in the area. And for a membership during summer months, it was anywhere from $200 to $450 a month for a typical family of 4. So could we do something like that? Yes, if we went to the voters for a property tax levy, they would actually be able to raise the funds for those things. But again, nobody's really asked for it outside of a few comments on social media. And while that is helpful that I do watch it and I do see what everybody writes, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be driving force on what council can and cannot allow to happen. I can't do it on my own. I would need council's permission to go forward and do that, to allocate the funds to do the research for the project and things like that. So that's something I ask you. If the community wants a community pool, I would highly encourage you to talk to your members of council. I would do so either publicly or through emails, things like that, and that's how those processes get started.
Fireworks policy in Reynoldsburg.
Yeah, so this is a completely different one, so there's a lot more on for this one. So, so the fireworks policy in terms of what you can use. If you remember, the governor allowed for fireworks to be in a number of different locations that were done for different holidays throughout the year. Reynoldsburg City Council made the rule that fireworks for the commercial grade could only be allowed between 8 p.m. and 10 p.m. on the 4th of July. Obviously, not everyone follows that particular thing. So the question basically is, what are you going to do to prevent the private fireworks scenario of this year from happening again? Depending on the area and depending on what it is, there's only so much that we can do. They are legal between that period of time. If somebody is doing it outside of that 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. range, they are asked to call RPD. During the time period the day before and through the holiday weekend, we had 36 calls related to fireworks. Officers responded to all of them. 27 of those calls, they found no fireworks there at the time. So depending on when the time called and when the fireworks were over, I don't know what that delay was, but they were there as well. They did, however, go to and found 9 houses, and they were issued warnings, and those residents actually said very specifically that they had no idea that the city law was there. So we're going to do a better job kind of getting that information out. We'll be more specific in our community guide as the beginning of next year and things like that about what it is. I did mention this to council on Monday night as well. If council wants to change the policy to ban fireworks outright in the city of Reynoldsburg, they are free to do so. But again, a lot of it comes to what resources we have as far as RPD going out to do that, to enforce that particular provision and things of that nature. And while for the most part it seems on social media, it seems that people would prefer that, there's a lot of resistance to the idea from other residents. They want to keep the fireworks there. But I completely get it, especially considering issues that are impacted, whether it's, you know, dogs being scared because of everything, veterans that are experiencing issues with PTSD, people who are afraid of loud noises, sensory issues, all of those different types of things do play a role into it. So you would like to think in this world that neighbors would be nicer to each other. Unfortunately, it doesn't always end up that way. But again, if this is something that the community wants, I would highly encourage them to reach out to council to revisit this particular idea.
What is going on with Hannah Ashton?
That's a really good question. There was a post yesterday about Hannah Ashton. You know, obviously the city has no control over Hannah Ashton. To the best of my ability, I would reach out to your school board members. I can tell you that the last time that it was kind of addressed here on the show is there were no specific plans for Hannah Ashton. I know a lot of people are saying, hey, they'll probably just change it and put apartments there. No, I would not be in favor of that. I would not recommend it. I cannot stop a developer from coming in and reaching an agreement with the school district if that's the direction the schools would want to go, but that entire area would have to be rezoned. And if that's the case, it would have to go to city council, and I would be on the front line saying, no, that isn't a good idea, unless the school district legitimately comes up with a reason for it. When I've talked to board members about it, they have no intention of doing that. They don't want to do that. What they would like to do is have that site utilized like the bond package had mentioned about putting a pre-K, K building there. That's what they want. I think ultimately that's the best use for it. You know, we obviously have a number of different options for living in Reynoldsburg, and I don't think that we need to take land away specifically for a school district that could use a pre-K, K building and put living there. There are other things that we have for that option. So I'm not in favor of it, and you know, I know that there are lots of jokes out there specifically about apartments in Reynoldsburg and things like that, and people can talk about I bet this and that and the other. I can't guarantee what council would or would not say, but I would advocate in opposition to any changing of zoning that would allow apartments on that particular property. As far as the historical tax credit stuff in that, the building's not eligible. Mary Turner Stutes from the Historical Society has looked into that. Because of the numerous amounts of changes over the years, that's not going to be the case. I do suggest that the next time I have a board member on, or they have a board meeting next week, I do suggest you ask the school district what their plans are for it, because I know they've got a potential levy coming up, and I know that's going to be a popular question to ask, but I'm just going on the information that I have that's on their website. So, good question. I'll take the next one.
Okay.
There was a question in there that said, why do you hate Reynoldsburg? And this was kind of an all-encompassing thing about 3 or 4 different emails that were talking about why I do what I do in the city. Why is it that I do X, Y, and Z? Why do I bring medical in? Why do I not bring in a bowling alley, a skating rink, and things of that nature? The reality of the situation is I don't hate Reynoldsburg. I think anybody who knows me knows that I'm a fierce advocate for Reynoldsburg. We may not always agree on what that means, but I'm always trying to do the best for the community, whether it's providing options in different levels of housing, which we have, whether it's senior housing, single family home, owner-occupied townhomes, apartments, and yes, affordable housing, which is something I've been talking about for 2 years. All of those things are there. Would I think that a bowling alley would make sense in Reynoldsburg? Unfortunately, I would not. There are a number of bowling alleys in Central Ohio. The last one that was created was a retrofit building of a department store that had gone out of business up in the Polaris area. I spent 13 years coaching bowling for Beechcroft High School, and so I've been to every bowling alley multiple times. Most of the bowling alleys are not making the profit that you would imagine. They do great on league nights, but there's a lot of dead time with it, so you're seeing that there's very few of those bowling alleys that are being built. Same thing with the skating, like a roller skating rink. There are 2 in all of Central Ohio. They're not going to come back. That is just something that when you look at how market economics works, that is not the number one thing that people are asking for. If they were, people would be doing it. there would be more options for it. I think that you're going to see more of an opportunity for a community pool than you'll ever see for a bowling alley or a skating rink, and that's just because of the nature of the cost involved with each of those facilities, and going on from there. So I don't hate Reynoldsburg. I love Reynoldsburg. I've lived here the longest of anywhere I've ever lived in my entire life. And I would not be doing this job if I did not love Reynoldsburg. It just may not always look like it depending on your points of view. But it's a legitimate question. It was sitting there. So thank you.
And last question, what are future thoughts of city development?
Yeah, I think a lot of it depends on where we move as a community as far as the size and scope of our community. There's very little land left that would be annexable out east. Most of that has been taken care of, so I think that's probably about the most expansion you're going to see unless things change. I would assume that the corridor between Taylor Road and Summit Road, on the side by, you've got the Fire Academy on one side, Department of Agriculture on the other. On the other side, that's probably where you're going to see a lot of our commercial development coming in the future. I would imagine that's where you're going to see, the restaurants and retail spaces and things like that lining from Taylor Road all the way to Summit. Not all of it is in Reynoldsburg right now, but if the property owners decided to annex in and do something different with it, I could see them doing that. I think that housing in itself is probably limited at this point for a couple of different reasons. The first one is there's just not any room left anywhere. The land across from Central Ohio Primary Care is going to be something different. It's going to be athletic fields, and I never wanted to put housing there in general. But I think we've hit our capacity when it comes to a majority of housing in Reynoldsburg. There may be some pockets here, 20 things here, maybe a single family home community there that's relatively small in scope, but I don't imagine that there's a lot of housing. The rest of it is continuing to concentrate on bringing in quality of life businesses and things of that nature. So, any other questions that come in since?
We do have a few more.
Okay.
I'm just going to kind of work backwards here. I would like to know how much your taxes have went up in the last few years.
That's a good question. I don't know. I'd have to look and see what the property taxes are. Cities don't typically deal with property taxes very well, but thankfully my guest who's coming across on next week is the Franklin County Auditor, Michael Stinziano. I do know that the average income tax rate or the property tax rate has gone up 41% in Reynoldsburg. And a lot of that, again, is due to the lack of housing. It's a supply and demand issue. Housing becomes more desirable, so therefore the prices increase. But depending on your house in your neighborhood, you're seeing things where I remember prices in certain neighborhoods where houses were selling for $85,000, $90,000 are now selling for $280,000, and that is property value increasing exponentially.
What is the plan for the old Graham Road Elementary School?
That's a great question for the school district. Again, my understanding of the last time that when they put the bond issue up there is that building would be used, kind of torn down in addition to Hannah Ashton, and a universal kindergarten, pre-kindergarten, and administrative building would be built at that location. But that's the best that I know. But the bond issue didn't pass, so right now I think it's just going to remain the welcome center where new families come to register and they do some other things out there.
I believe this was in response to your no housing at the Hannah Ashton. Mm-hmm. They say, why no housing? You mean the mayor doesn't want more housing? Why not more low-income housing? We need more of these people.
I don't disagree that low income or middle income or affordable housing is needed. I just don't think in that area is there. The reason why is because of the simple fact the schools need the space for a universal kindergarten and pre-K building. So I wouldn't be in favor of it in that particular location. It's not zoned for it, so it would have to go through a massively large process to do so. Again, you're not going to find anybody that's more of a fierce advocate of housing in general, but housing for housing's sake in areas where it does not make sense, specifically when there are other needs in that regard to the duty of the school district, it just doesn't make sense for that particular spot.
Another one, a question I see a lot of people asking is, why is the city taking a loss on the PNC location?
Yeah, we're actually not taking a loss on the PNC location. It was a question of timing. As you know, we had the PNC piece that was up. We purchased the PNC property for $2 million, and then what we ended up doing after that is entering into contract with CMHA that would bring $1.5 million back. The land that is right next to Central Ohio Primary Care is under contract right now. Pending council approval, that will be sold for $600,000, which will then make up the difference for it. We sold the remaining part of the Central Ohio Primary Care for around $996,000, and that whole property was only purchased for $1.15 million. So we're actually going to be coming out ahead on that property significantly, which offsets the losses on the PNC. So it does balance out. The goal is to have both of those projects on council at the same time to make it easier for people to get that connection. Just had to go through a couple of different hoops with some dotting of the I's and crossing of the T's. But that's a good question, and it's good because not everybody saw the connection between those two pieces.
All right, I believe that's all the additional questions. Let's go down to the bottom. Oh, just kidding.
I can give it one here.
Okay.
What about any medical marijuana dispensaries coming?
That's a good question. We don't know. The state only recently has kind of provided some clarity to it. I can tell you that any medical marijuana or recreational marijuana facilities are regulated highly by the state and by the city. There has to be certain conditions. It has to be in a freestanding building, and no matter where they would be put in the city, they would all have to be put as a conditional use, meaning that the Planning and Zoning Board would have to do it. There's certain requirements. It can't be within X amount of feet of a school district, of parks and things of that nature. So there are not a huge number of locations for that. We have gotten lots of calls, but nothing has been actually submitted to anything because, again, it's not as easy a thing to bring into the community as what most people think. You can't. It's not like if somebody wanted to bring in, I know Dunkin' Donuts was mentioned a couple of times as well. It's not as easy to bring in a Dunkin' Donuts. There's a lot more restrictions for it.
All right, and then Old Town Shopping Center business has been down since Wagner Road construction. Any thought to improve businesses going back? That's all I can see.
Okay. I assume in that area you're talking about, I get it. I don't know how much Wagner Road construction has an impact on it, considering Main Street was a significantly more impactful thing. No business has reached out to us. I do know that some of the property owners in the area have done a number of different things as far as restricting what can and cannot be on property and things of that nature, but nobody's reached out to us specifically. The Bubble Tea Shop has actually been at our farmers market a number of times. Tyler's has been there, and none of them have said that they have suffered any adverse effects. That's not to say that they aren't, but I'd just be curious. If they did, please let me know and we can figure out other options. Unfortunately, Wagner Road is going to be continuing for quite some time moving forward.
We have a few more. I think it's easier on the phone.
Okay, yeah.
This, so she has to keep scrolling up. Are there any plans for the current city facilities along Blacklick Creek when the new facility opens?
Yeah, we've talked about that. There's going to be a lot of options. Right now, we're leaning to green space. We're leaning to kind of expanding and doing some retrofitting from some park stuff out there. Probably a potential bridge over across so that kind of connects Huber Park to the other side on the other side. That's kind of where we're leaning right now. A lot of it will determine once we get everything off that site, looking at environmentals, that may limit what could go there anyway, and what kind of park space or we have to do on any other remediation. It's a good question.
One more. What are the current plans for the revamp of Civic Park? Heard a lot about it
Yep.
and haven't heard anything lately.
So the plans are there. We know that they're phased out to it. A lot of it is about getting funding sources. So the way that we're trying to do things without having to go to the taxpayers for additional dollars is some of the housing units that have been put in place. The Rose Hill townhomes, the Wagner Road townhomes are already locked into what is called a TIF, a tax increment financing. So the property taxes from those things would be kind of coalesced and brought together at a faster rate for the city. Then we would use those property taxes to actually pay for the improvements to Civic Park. Right now, the total package for everything at Civic Park, excuse me, is probably going to be about $20 million. The first phase alone is probably about $2 million. $2 million would include a dog park, frisbee golf, the increased trails, and then also starting to work on some of the underground stuff, the electric work, the water works, things like that. It's a good question. The goal is, if everything continues to move forward, is what we're projecting right now. And a lot of it depends on how quickly the Wagner Road townhomes are built up. But if the last one is any indication from Rose Hill, they'll sell pretty quick. We could probably see construction on that first phase probably in 2026.
All right, that concludes all of our questions.
All right, well, again, if you have more, please keep them coming. I have no issues with it. We do have a job fair going on, so if you're looking for some extra jobs out there, we have a job fair for Reynoldsburg City Schools going on right now from 8 to 3:30 at the Graham Road Center that we mentioned earlier. They're looking for bus drivers, cooks, sub-cooks, maintenance, and custodians. So go on out there right now. Well, not right now. Wait until the show's over, and then go on out there. They'll be there till 3:30. Board office hours are there, so a couple of questions that people are asking about Hannah Ashton or the Graham Road Center, things like that. I would definitely reach out to board member Neil Whitman. He does his shows. I don't think he had one last week because of the holiday, but I'm sure he'll be back now, and if he's watching, you'll probably see a comment saying that he'll be there. He does a live show for the 30 minutes from 4 to 4:30 on Fridays, and then he'll talk with anybody after the fact, but that's at Graham Road, so go ahead and check that out. I've got a couple of things out there. These are rare. These don't happen. Tire collections. Some people have them. I don't know why. Usually when I'm done with my tires, they're gone and I never have to worry about them again. But if you have extra tires or tires that you're looking to get rid of, Swaco has got 2 events over the next couple of weekends. This Saturday from 9 to 12 at 3820 Clinton Avenue, and then next Saturday from 9 to 12 at 5333 Lockbourne Road. They will actually accept your tires. For more details, please go ahead and check out the Swaco website. We did put a Facebook post on there earlier, so go ahead and check those out. But if you have some tires, those are easy things. Those are things that the city doesn't take care of. Those are things that local waste will not do. So you have to go specifically to Swaco for events like that. Any questions?
Yes. What do we know about how the noise contours will change with the 2B airport project?
The 2B airport? Oh, are you talking about the actual airport, the construction? We have no idea. We have not been given any information about that one. Obviously, Reynoldsburg is kind of in that sideline. I can't imagine that it's going to get any, maybe it gets busier, but I don't know if there's anything as far as like changing of the altitudes or heights or anything like that. That's a good question. We'll reach out to them, but yeah, we've never even heard anything about that. And honestly, I don't think that there would be much that we could do about it as it's outside of control of Reynoldsburg. It's a good question though. All right. As we go through, our walk and talks are starting on Saturday, July 20th. I saw a really cool graphic that you'll see out there for some of the events. I'm going to start at Bartlett and Haft. We're going to walk up there to Bartlett, up to Rose Hill, and then I'm going to come back down Retton. So you're free to join me. You don't have to live in that area to join me if you don't want to, but you're welcome to come out there. I'll probably have a garbage bag and a trash picker for myself, and we'll kind of walk up and down that area. And any questions you have about Reynoldsburg, I'm happy to do it. Again, not a lot of times are people willing to come down to City Hall, or they don't want to, or the timing just doesn't work. So I'm going to do some on Saturdays, and I'm going to do some in the evenings around 6:30 or so. I've got 2 scheduled a month between now and October, and you'll start seeing those out in the next little bit. So check those out. As far as road updates, obviously Wagner Road is moving along. We're at about, let's see, what do we have? 421 days to go. But we're actually doing pretty well on schedule. The water line is about done. It should be completed in the next 2 weeks, depending on weather. But that's a huge portion of it, because that's a lot of the underground work. That's a lot of things that kind of make people nervous about things. Columbia Gas is out by Priestley, and they're starting their process. And the AEP is actually all the way throughout the corridor. You may see a big truck with a hose going into the ground. That's actually them excavating and getting ready to lay in the actual new poles that will be going in for the electric and all the utilities above. The one thing that is going to come up sooner rather than later, and we're trying to figure that out, is we know that there's going to be work done on the bridge at Main Street and Wagner. It's the one right by the gas station and that second entrance into the retail shopping area. That is a Franklin County bridge, and they're going to be doing some work on that. They will shut that bridge down. We're trying to figure out exactly for how long and what time, how much that's going to be. The goal is that is started and completed before school starts. So we're just waiting to hear back on Franklin County. We should hopefully know before next week's show that'll be the next big impact. But it's not going to last it's not going to last 3-4 months. It's going to be a relatively quick thing. All right, the other one that's news that has nothing to do with Reynoldsburg is, for those of you that might have been paying attention, the City of Columbus has authorized about $25 million to redo Broad Street construction, starting from 270 to what is called Chris Perry Lane. As my son calls it, the place by Cane's Chicken Fingers. So that's basically the area scope in their phase 1. They're going to be doing some widening, they're going to be doing some sidewalk improvements and things like that, and that's going to start in the next couple of weeks as well. That is something that we have nothing to do with, but it obviously is going to impact traffic in this region in general. They do have a phase 2 that is scheduled to start in 2026, but hopefully by the time 2026 is coming along, we're wrapping up Wagner phase 2. So Sheets, we're just waiting for them to tell us when they're going to go ahead and do the repaving of their particular function, so that'd be in the next couple of days. It's raining today. I don't think there's any rain in the schedule for the next few days, but my guess is if they haven't started by now, they'll probably be doing this next week. As far as other fun news from the 4th of July, unfortunately, we did have to cancel the Reynoldsburg Police Department and Truro Township Fire Department softball game, but look for that to get rescheduled sometime in the fall on a nice cool day where people aren't walking and sweating up a storm, so that'll be a good thing. We do have a couple of blood drives. Blood drive was done yesterday. Another one's coming up on the 28th right here at RPD, and kind of our Battle of the Badges continuing. We also have our National Night Out. This is our new event that we do every year, but this is the first time we've had a chance to talk about it. It's Tuesday, August 6th from 5 to 8 p.m. right here at JFK. There's going to be a DJ, there's going to be a raffle, bounce houses, a drone demo, there's going to be some food available and all sorts of other cool things. It's a lot of fun to get to talk to our police officers at points in time when you can talk to police officers, and it's not the worst moment of your life, getting a ticket. So there you go. We also have our flood grant town hall on July 18th at the Reynoldsburg Library. That's from 6 to 8 p.m. So again, make sure you're here for that. That is next week. Any questions? I forgot to take a quick break for that.
Yes. How does the city social worker routinely engage with the homeless community around Civic Park?
It's pretty consistent that they're out there. We have, for lack of a better term, we've identified a certain number of homeless individuals in our Reynoldsburg community in general. And as we know, we've talked a little bit before, we kind of fall into two categories. There's homeless individuals that are there because life has just taken a lot of bad turns. Job loss, economic issues, things of that nature. And those are one category that we try to find help for. There's another group of individuals that might be suffering from drug or alcohol addiction, or they could be suffering from mental health issues. Those are a little bit more difficult because we cannot force or impose treatment. Individuals have to want it, but we do provide as much information as we can. We do talk about medical clinics and things like that to get them if there's certain needs that they have. They're out there consistently and they are monitoring as best as they can, and when somebody does ask for help, then that opens our doors to actually do a lot more to connect them to those resources. Okay. Some programs, we have the Livingston House Nighttime Tour, July 19th and August 16th from 10 to midnight. That's only for 18 and up, so if you're younger than that, sorry, you have to wait. It is kind of a ghost tour thing, so you'll hear a little bit about the history of the Livingston House and maybe some other Reynoldsburg cool things going on. If that's a little too scary for you, we have our Paint and Sip mini canvas on July 28th at Eastside Brewing from 1 to 3 p.m. We also have Monday on the 22nd, we have Wacky Olympics, where everybody can kind of get together with an adult and a child at the Reynoldsburg Community Church, and they'll go through some Olympic games, and there'll be some great prizes and awards there as the Olympics are getting ready to start. Talking about development a little bit, we did talk about the field right next to the Central Ohio Primary Care, so that had its first read. So basically process for council is they go through 3 reads and then there's usually a referendum period unless something is there. Council did agree to put this in emergency legislation, so we'll go this read this past Monday. We'll have another one on the 22nd, and then that's when the real work begins. That's when the engineering is planned and stuff like that. And one question that has commonly come up is about traffic. How do we address traffic? So if you can imagine, you've got Carlisle, Hanson, and then you've got a kind of a center thing. So as the building is designed, we'll work with our traffic engineers and their developers, and we'll figure out where is it best to find a different entrance. Are people going to primarily go in through Carlisle? Are they going to go in through Hanson? Do we have a center one at some point where there's a traffic light at one of those 3 intersections? That's where that stuff kind of gets worked out. I imagine there will be a traffic light there at some point and some road modifications. But all of that will come out as we go through the engineering based on the amount of traffic that they're expecting. If you didn't see council or haven't heard me the last couple of weeks, there's going to be about 30,000 square feet of restaurant and retail on the front side of Main Street. So we know there'll be a restaurant there. There's probably going to be, I would assume, probably like a sports shop of something where you can get equipment and things like that. And then on the other part of it, we're hoping for the Boys and Girls Club to be there so they can be a conduit for some of our residents that might need a little bit of more help or a little after school care with some of their programming. And then the athletic facilities are going to be a full-size football field and then another building that will have indoor basketball, pickleball, and things like that. But all of that stuff will be accessible to the community. We also have it in the deal where the City of Reynoldsburg Parks and Recreation Department have access to it a certain number of hours per week, as well as the school district. So it's going to be something where it's a little bit more of all of everybody kind of coming together with that. So we're very excited about that. I'm looking forward to it. And again, kind of stay tuned. Obviously, council has to pass it the next time, but you'll see updates. And once we have an actual site plan that has kind of been vetted through engineering and things like that, that's when you'll see it come to the Planning and Zoning Board. So good question. Anybody, anything else?
Nope.
No? Okay. Market Off Main is tomorrow. Missed it last week. A couple of people that'll be there tomorrow is Maine's Cousin Lobster is going to be there. That's going to be fun. And then one of my favorites, and there's a lot of favorites there, is Darnella's Desserts. The pound cake is just absolutely perfect. It is made exactly the way it's supposed to be, which means that it is more healthy for your soul than your body, but we'll just kind of stick with that. We also have yoga at the market as well, and this is a new one, a pet photo contest as well. So for all of you out there that love your animals, bring them on out, and I'm sure there's going to be a cool little thing for that. This weekend, the Columbus Library Book Festival is happening at the main branch of the Columbus Library. There's going to be about 200 authors over the couple of days that people can actually get to talk to, and then obviously check out books and do some reading. So go ahead and check that out on their website. I know that the Reynoldsburg branch will be doing its own kind of thing as well. On Saturday or Sunday, the 14th, you will have Simba Jordan will be performing at the Livingston House in our Concert on the Lawn series. And that's going to be the Grilled Cheese Gangster is going to provide some food out there, so go ahead and purchase those. That's really good stuff. And I know everybody's kind of looking forward to this one. You know, not now, soon. You'll be able to go ahead and reserve some of those tables for our Tomato Festival. That'll happen pretty much right after this show is over. Has the link actually been sent out, or are we sending that out right afterwards?
Right after.
Right afterwards.
Yep.
So stay tuned, right on, same bad time, same bad channel, as soon as we're done here. But go ahead and register for those things. You'll be given a little bit of time to come in and make your payment for it, to reserve it. If you don't meet it within a certain period of time, then those things will come up onto a waiting list. So just because you may not be the first person there, just kind of go through all the way across. So we'll just wait and see. But I'm pretty sure these are going to sell out pretty quick. We'll also have some volunteer signups coming in the not too distant future as well. And with that, that was a jam-packed show. I apologize if you just didn't want to listen to me talk for 45 minutes or so, but I didn't have a guest to throw in here, and I didn't want to rush anybody. But next week, we will have Franklin County Auditor Michael Stinziano, and he's going to be able to give you a little bit more information about what the property tax impact would be. I know we have a board meeting on Tuesday, so hopefully we'll have some information about what that may look like and the impact on a resident here in Reynoldsburg, which, again, I didn't plan for Auditor Stenziano to be here, but if there's anybody better to answer how that's going to impact your property taxes, it's going to be the guy that's actually in charge of all of that. So he will be here as well, and if anything, he'll tell you at least who to contact to get the more specific information for your particular home. Any last second questions?
Oh, we did, and I really want to ask this one.
Of course you do.
What's the chance that the Chicago Cubs win the 2024 World Series?
I think that if I had a magic 8 ball, I'd say, either the future is foggy. Anything can happen, but I am not nearly as hopeful as the time when they actually did win the World Series. But thank you for that question. I appreciate that. All I know is that I'm on a 7-game losing streak watching the Cubs in person. So every time that I've seen them, so you would think that if I just don't go ever again, they'd win some games. I do plan on going to 1 game in Chicago later this year, so hopefully we will break that streak. And who knows, by then maybe things have changed. You never know. But that's a good question. Anything else?
Nope.
All right. Well, again, thank you, everybody. We will have a guest next week, and obviously we're just kind of jam-packed throughout the rest of the year as we're getting ready for the Tomato Festival, and then we've got all sorts of other things coming up as well. So appreciate it. Stay safe, stay respectful, and as always, please put away your shopping carts. Thanks, everybody.